you kind of lost me at data transfer. I don't know what's going on here.
FTP, file transfer protocol.
Now, what we have to remember is that not every position can be changed to every other position.
And making sure that the users we have now stay happy and stay on while trying to attract some other people to play it.
They make
Hustle home, but yeah. No, that's over in a heartbeat. Ain't got any problem with that.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of This, That, and the Other. I am your host, Magic, and tonight's episode is going to feature a Wilkinson conference that is compiled of all human coaches. So honestly, I have not looked, but I'd venture to say it's probably the only such situation currently in all of Gridiron Dynasty. So hopefully we'll get a handful of their coaches as scheduled to come on the show and discuss some things regarding the impact of an all-human conference versus what we generally find, which is a sprinkling of human coaches mixed in with a larger amount of Sim AI teams. But before we get to that group of coaches, let me just say that the Fantasy Football League for this season's Yahoo, This, That, and the Other Fantasy Football League is filled. So we do have a full complement of 16 coaches. We did have 2 coaches who did not return, but we were able to get those teams new managers. So we are, in fact, at full strength now, and the teams have been locked in, and we're looking to draft on August 28th. I believe it's 8 p.m. Eastern time. So hopefully I can do a little bit better than I did last year, and had a couple of guys get hurt right off the bat. So we'll see. Fingers crossed. Hopefully everything works out. But anyway, I'm looking right now to see if we can get maybe some T-shirts or something like that, a T-shirt or something for the league champion every year. I think that would be pretty cool. Let's go ahead and get with these fellas in Wilkinson. There's 4 of them, so I'm going to step out and bring these guys. I think there's 3. I'm sorry, 3 of them on board. So let's take a look at these yahoos.
Got a crew.
I'm not a yahoo. You're a yahoo.
We lose Magic.
Everybody's a yahoo. Everybody's a yahoo. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Good to see you guys. If I'm not mistaken, every one of you has been on the show before, so I'll just say welcome back.
I'm going to say something real quick. Of the 3 coaches that are in here for the Beast and Wilk, you ever feel like it's a whole line from one of the Tonight shows a long time ago? You feel like the world is a tuxedo and you're a pair of brown shoes compared to these 2 coaches. That's kind of really what I kind of feel like here.
Well, I can empathize with you, Billy, because I feel that way no matter what conference I'm in. That's just the way it is, you know. And I looked at it honestly. I said, let me do at least a cursory view of the conference just to kind of see, who these coaches are and see what kind of makeup as far as their history goes. And let me see if I can throw that up on the board here. I'm going to have to put my specs on to see. All right. Can you guys see that?
Mm-hmm.
If you look down at the very bottom of the wins column, this is probably what stood out to me more than anything else. 12 coaches with a combined over 33,000 wins. I mean, just let that sink in for a minute. 33,000 wins. So it is not a stretch at all to say the conference is full of winning coaches. It's not a bunch of guys who have decided, I'm going to join this group and with my 500 record and hope to learn something. This is an intensely competitive group. you look at the national championships, we're almost at 250. And I would venture to say by the time this season is completed, in this particular conference, that number will reach and possibly surpass 250 simply because of the other teams that these coaches have spread out throughout other conferences in other worlds. And it's phenomenal. When you can rack up over 1,000 conference championships, amassing 80% plus winning percentage. Geez, man, being in this conference is going to do nothing but hurt you guys.
Some of us.
I think we're all past the point of really caring too much about that, though.
Yeah, and I do commend everyone who takes on such an endeavor, because it is a ding on your record. If it's kind of like playing ball in the SEC, you can be really good, but you're going up against the best of the best every weekend in and out, and you're going to take some losses unless you're that lucky coach that particular year who finds his way at the top of the battle mound. And I would even suggest that that's not an annual occurrence for a coach. I got a feeling that conference championship will likely be a rotational thing given the quality of the coaches. I mean, you guys, if I'm not mistaken, it just filled up this year all human. Is that correct?
This calendar year, I believe, right?
Okay.
Yeah. I think we've been going, this is like year 6, right, guys?
Yeah, something like that.
6 or 7,
Good gracious.
And if Jason has anything to say about it and keeps recruiting the way he is, he will win it every year. So let's see if we can keep him being lazy with game planning.
I have not won the last couple seasons. So it's good. It's great competition. It's great competition.
Well, I'll stick with you and let you answer this one. What do you think is the biggest advantage of being in a conference with not just human coaches, but with the quality of human coaches that we find in the Wilk Beast?
Recruiting money.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I mean, it lets us compete. It's hard to compete as a non-elite team in D1A, right. But the recruiting money makes up. We'll see if it makes up enough of the difference. I don't know, but it definitely evens the playing field quite a bit. Versus
what are we talking about as far as the amount, usually average annual at the conclusion of the season, if you have those numbers off the top of your head?
I don't remember, but it was
a lot. I think we're having a pretty good run where it's around 100, and if we go, last year was pretty crazy. I think we got 8 teams in, and it was like 125 or something like that.
Yeah, I think we had 7 in. Yeah, I think it was like in the 120s.
Yeah.
I think like on a down year, I think about 3 or 4 seasons ago, maybe we had like 90. And that was
and for those folks who don't maybe comprehend what we're talking about here, this is money that's in addition to the allotment based on the scholarships you have open for the coming season. So at D1 AA, you've got 10 grand, but here we are at D1 where you're looking at $15,000 of scholarship. And if it is one of these setups where you've only got 3 or 4 recruits that you're trying to bag that particular season, you're looking at 45 grand if you're looking at 3 recruits. But then you top that off with this additional postseason money, and you've got $145,000 to spend on 3 recruits. And that is just, I can't imagine sitting there with that kind of golden honeypot, knowing that I can pretty much grab any recruit that I really choose to. And, even when you're looking at a 10 to 15 man scholarship opportunity, you're well in excess of $250,000, $300,000. And like you said, Jason, that's going to be tough even for elites to compete with. Billy, what do you think is the other advantage besides the recruiting money?
I mean, obviously it's definitely the recruiting money, but that there's a yin to the yang to that. because I'm around some of the people that have that recruiting money.
Right.
So it is kind of a disadvantage. I think playing all of these guys every week, every game, kind of sharpens my edge as a coach. I mean, I'm not going to blow smoke. I am not at the level of these two guys, but I actually beat Freeman for a half.
For a half.
I was like, wait a minute.
I'll take it for a play.
Wait a minute. I was like, so, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's just that it's like playing in the SEC. There really is, in real life, there's no cupcakes, at least for me. I mean, maybe for some of these guys who are, better at it and more established as better coaches. But, even for them, there are no cupcakes. And I think it helps me in maybe some other worlds that I'm in.
Now, do you pick up on some of the tendencies that are shown in this world?
I try to. I try to get the cheat codes from Rice, but he won't give them to me. But you try as much as you can, and and how I will look at some of these guys' rosters, like these two guys and some of the other people who are continuously successful at this. And maybe I think I'm recruiting a good player based on certain ratings. And then I'll go look, okay, what do his defensive backs look like? Or what do his linebackers look like? Or stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I do that a little more on the defensive side, where I'll look, okay, well, these guys are successful recruiting those type of players. So maybe I'll go after players with maybe some of those attributes. So that is kind of that's what I do. And I believe it helps me, in other worlds.
Now, Rice, you have to forgive me. I do not recall your first name. Share that with us if you.
Matthew.
That's what I thought it was, Matthew.
Yep. That's all right. Rice works too. That's what everybody calls me in life. So, yeah.
Well, the competition in this particular conference, once conference starts, you're game planning every single week.
Some of us.
Except for Freeman. Jason doesn't. He doesn't have to.
Is the fact that you are having to game plan every week, does that kind of wear on you as far as your mental approach to the game, or does it make for a lazy approach later on in the conference schedule?
So I would say in this world, I'm pretty locked in with game plans because I'm at Marquette. Marquette's pretty crappy location. I mean, Ty's at DePaul or Billy's at DePaul, and we got to avoid each other in recruiting, and then we got to recruit against Big Ten elites pretty much. So we got to duck around a little bit, and I think that makes me game plan probably a little bit more in this world for sure, and that's the fun of it. It's a big challenge to be successful at any of these schools. I mean, Jason doesn't have a cupcake schedule or recruiting area in Pittsburgh, and Sean doesn't at West Virginia either, just because of the coaches surrounding us. So like, I'm pretty locked in to make it work and win games. I'm pretty competitive in that way, where I slack off in some of the other worlds where I don't have to compete until the playoffs. And what this world, I think, teaches us, and Ty alluded to, is like, you will learn what works and what doesn't work on this game playing against other coaches that are really good. Whereas a lot of other coaches, they don't play anybody throughout the year. And then they get to the playoffs now and they don't know what works for the roster they have. And sometimes for me, it's like a little tweak, like the one area of my game plan or one area of my formations and tendencies that makes a real big difference to unlock it. And when I got to play DePaul tomorrow on the road, he's a good playoff team. I mean, he's one of the top 30 teams easy in Wilk. So I got to figure out what's going to work. And then when I get matchups later on against similar opponents, I know what will work.
Sounds like you've got to keep your mind at, they say the football adage of keep your head on a swivel because you're likely to get hit when you're not expecting it. So when it comes to game planning, the same analogy applies. You really have to keep your nose in there and make sure you're looking at what you're doing because like you said, you've got some top 25, top 30 teams in conference that are going to take your head off if you're not prepared.
Yeah, I think our worst team's probably a top 35 team out of all the teams that we have. Well, Syracuse is doing a little rebuild right now. They're a ways away yet, but everybody else is a challenging opponent.
And even if they don't finish that way, they may finish lower than 35th, but
yeah, because how many of those losses were amassed within the conference? That's going to hurt you. I don't care who you are, but not necessarily as much because of the quality, if you will, of those losses.
Yeah, well, I mean, we pretty much break the WIS ranking system with the way our teams have to compete against each other. And so, we end up with, a few teams out of the playoffs. And like you said, they're easily top 30 teams if they had been in other conferences or if they had easier schedules. So, it's interesting how that plays out. I'm not sure how that plays out on the top end. Someone's able to make a run through the conference and win all their games. They're going to be one or two or three seeded team. Yeah. And maybe they're not really that good of a team because I don't know if we've made that leap yet to catch the elite, the top, the Penn States or Texas or
was it Matt 2 years ago made it to the NC, right?
I made the Final Four, and I think Jason's made the Final Four.
Yeah.
Which some of that's draw dependent, right? So, I think I played 2 or 3 elites on the way to the Final Four, but there's good elites and there's bad elites. And it's not necessarily the school, it's who's coaching them that makes a big difference. And there's some people that I think you can get over on that are coaching elites right now. I'm not going to name names, but there's some weaker elites in our world, and you can get through on them. But there's some that, like Kenzie at Notre Dame, I don't know how I would beat his roster with my Marquette roster. There's not much chance, I don't think.
Yeah, he's usually got a pretty stout team no matter where he's at. Jason, I'm going to fire a curveball at you here and need you to be completely honest. Aside from the benefit of the recruiting money, if a coach or two leaves the conference, would you rather see caliber, similar type coaches join the conference or a cupcake like me join the conference?
I mean, to bring the best coaches that we can get. The best coaches that we can get is the best. I mean, that was the whole concept why we're here is we, picked really good coaches to come and join this conference and do something that's different than you can find in, if not any of the worlds in any of the conferences, at least most of them. I think that's what drew a lot of us here is that, it's the challenge of competing against the best. And I mean, that's by far the most interesting part about this experiment is, you've got to play the best, and you can lose, but on the other hand, you can lose a few games and you can still make the playoffs because your schedule is high enough.
That's true.
And then somebody's going to get your team and be like, why do I have to play this team? Like, that's the fun of it too. I think I was 8-5 last year because I only had 18 juniors and seniors, and I got USC, who was a 2 seed, and I should have beat them. I mean, it came down to an onside kick you recovered to beat me. So like I had more fun doing that than when I was a 1 seed and going to the Final Four, just trying to upset people and come, ruin their season. That's been fun too.
Now you guys have to forgive me, but I did not take the time to research this, but thought about it just before airtime, and it speaks to the roster makeup. Is there a team or maybe multiple teams within the conference that have those 25, 30 man recruiting classes every 3rd or 4th year?
I don't think so. I don't think anyone
all pretty much.
I think Sean has a big class, right?
Yeah. He's got an 18. I think he had 18 incoming this year. He's got a big class. Michigan's got a huge class. Which
Michigan has a huge class. Yes.
Back-to-back huge classes.
Yeah.
Now, I was just wondering if that was maybe a strategic aspect of a particular coach or coaches when it comes to conference setups like this, where they feel that, if they can be really super competitive 1 or possibly even 2 years out of 4, they would rather take that than be, possibly mediocre 4 out of 4.
Let's see.
You could try it, but I mean, you're going to get ran the years you don't have that big class in our conference. I don't know how much fun that would be.
Exactly.
Well, West Virginia is doing pretty good this season with 18 freshmen.
Yeah.
With the class of 18.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, that Sean does that, and there are more than a handful of coaches in this conference that can take a team and pull them up out of the ditch in 2 years, 3 years, and make them highly competitive. So, that's got to be intimidating from any outsiders if they're aware of that when they're coming into this conference. But like you've all mentioned, that overall cream of the crop helps in recruiting because of the ability of these coaches. Now, Billy, is there a lot of recruiting battles within the conference, or have you guys just pretty much done the old nonverbal agreement and just through the period of recruiting that you don't pick on one another, so to speak?
Well, just for me personally in this conference, it's Matt and I are in the same backyard. We do not, just because people may think, oh, well, they don't battle each other.
There's a reason for it, though.
It's a rare thing,
Yeah.
and it's not anything that he and I have private chatted about, but I think it's kind of an unwritten thing.
Yeah. And I've always said it's not collusion if after 2 or 3 years, the two coaches realize where a particular coach recruits and where he doesn't recruit, just because of the unspoken, grid lines, if you will, lines in the dirt. And that's happened with me in D2 in the LSC conference. When you've got a lot of those Texas teams on each other's doorstep, and you've got a Tarleton or a Texas A&M Commerce or Angelo State, after 2 or 3 years, you kind of, if the coaches remain the same, you kind of get that sense of he's not going to bother me with this particular recruit as long as I lay off of him with this one. And that's a choice, or that's a situation that not all coaches will appeal. It won't appeal to all coaches.
I'm not saying it's never going to happen between Matt and I, because it eventually probably will, just because of a number thing. Yeah. It eventually will. I'll give you an example. I am at Nebraska in Stag, and I took over someone that basically didn't recruit, had Sims for 2 years, and they have a guy coaches at Kansas. It's his only team he's only in one world, and that's all he's got. And he was pretty good. So even though I was an elite for a while, it was like until I had to build the team up, I kept butting heads with him. And, I would still build a good roster, but I'd lose out on some players. So now it's not that I'm afraid of him. I am a little more selective in battles with him, and my roster and my record since I've done that has improved.
Now, and this is an open question for anybody. Who is perceived to be the best recruiter in the conference?
I'd say Jason. Yeah. I think Sean's the guy that maximizes rosters better than anybody, though. I look at Sean's team sometimes. I'm like, what is that? How is he winning with that roster? And
he's got the cheat codes.
Yeah.
So that speaks to the next question I had, which was game planning. Who's the best game planner?
Obviously, I think there are 3, and you can rank them in any way, shape, or form. It is Jason, Matt, and Sean. in our conference, in no particular order.
Yeah, I think I'm probably
I think those are the
I'm at
best
the bottom
playing
of the
coaches.
list. I'm at the bottom of the list if I'm on that list. I'm not very good game planning.
You know who's sneaky good though is Jeff. Jeff can game plan. Like that's a guy that he can really do some things within the passing game that I haven't figured out how to do.
Wow. Well, Warren,
I mean,
welcome.
he played Temple the day after I took Temple to overtime and just rocked him. And Temple's got the best roster, I think. Jason or Temple have the best roster in the Big
Temple's
East.
got the best roster. Temple should have the best roster.
Yeah. And again, sorry, I didn't mean to step on you, Matt, but wanted to welcome Warren to the show. Warren, a lot of folks may not know who you are. I don't think you've been on TTATO before, have you?
No, it's my first time.
Well, welcome to the show, and hope you watch us from here on out. I know you're more than welcome back anytime you want. It doesn't have to be a special invite. But since this is your first opportunity, I'll just treat you like we're interviewing you momentarily and kind of tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, anything you're willing to share. How did you get into Gridiron Dynasty is one everybody wants to know.
Well, actually, I've been in for quite some time. I joined back in 2012. But again, coming along very slowly, not very good at recruiting, still learning that a lot. Game planning, I heard you all talking about that. It's usually hit and miss for me. Sometimes I'll be on a tear and I let it ride, and then someone comes in and I get my butt kicked for like 5 games in a row. So I'm still trying to figure that out as well. From New Jersey, I'm in Rutherford, New Jersey, so East Coast here. Kind of overextended myself this season. I'm in 8 different worlds, so I'm kind of like, wow. Yeah, I know. It's a little, I overdid it.
Yeah.
I had some time to kill, and I just kept joining. And so I'm doing some experimenting here and there. But I'm really enjoying the Beast in this league in Wilkinson.
Well,
I mean, I love having all humans to play, even though they're a lot better than me. It gives me a challenge to start working towards something.
Yeah,
we're playing a lot. It's really, not much to it. You don't know if you're doing anything right or wrong, because normally you get a win if you put half an effort.
Yeah.
Warren, which team are you?
Yeah.
What team are you?
Currently Rutgers.
Oh, you're okay. You're the one with the stacked roster. Oh my God. That's a fertile recruiting ground, though. I've coached at Rutgers. So
you're Bulldog 120 then, right, Warren?
I'm Bulldog 120 and also wdietz.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So you're Bulldog 120. Okay.
Well, guys, one of the things that I'm curious about, and I don't care what anybody else thinks, but this is just me talking, is how much of a devil on your shoulder happens when things aren't going really well, and you get that sense of, you're looking at your record and you're 3-11. It's maybe the second year in a row sub 500, and as Jason mentioned, you could possibly be a top 25, top 30 team if you were in any other conference. How much of that devil is whispering in your ear? Just give it up, get out, go somewhere where it's easier.
Of the 4 coaches here, I'm probably the only one that needs to answer that. No, I'm gonna stick this out for a while. I don't plan on leaving because I have other worlds where I don't have this type of challenge. For the day-to-day stuff. So I do take it as a challenge. It's tough to get coaches to consistently not make the playoffs or go make the playoffs and one and done. It's tough to get guys to continue to do that. Even if I keep kind of on that level, I plan on sticking it out. I can only speak, for myself.
Jason, is this something that you'd be interested in doing in another world? Maybe not necessarily at D1, but tackling, for lack of a pun there, I didn't mean to say that, tackling another conference of all humans, given the amount of work being in such a conference actually takes, it's above and beyond when you're competitive in a conference with just Sims, or competing in a conference with just Sims.
Yeah, I think this is maybe the 4th or 5th time that I've done something like this. So, I mean, this is, for me, this is actually all that I really enjoy. Like I would not enjoy going and, you know, just playing in an empty conference or trying to shoot for an elite. I don't really care to play for any elites or anything. I'm trying something kind of fun in Stag right now. But other than that, like this is what all that is fun for me, is to really make it challenging. I mean, it's not really challenging so much anymore just to win a conference and build a team. This is the kind of challenge that is you know, that's fun.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, then it's really doable to be in an all-human conference in multiple worlds simultaneously, as long as they're not recruiting schedule at the same time. But you know, you may be in 2 or 3 different worlds and be in an all human conference. And the reason I even ask about that is I'm sure there are a lot of coaches out there who would love to be in an all-human conference, and maybe they're not doing it because they're either, you know, a little bit intimidated by the quality of the coaches that will likely end up and make up a conference such as this, or they feel that they may like it and get hooked on it, kind of like what Jason alluded to, and now they're seeking that thrill across the other worlds, and it eats up more time than they likely have or want to dedicate to it.
Well, it's hard. I mean, as Ty said, or Billy or Ty. I usually just call people whatever their names are. It's really hard for the teams that don't win. And I think you're doing fine. I mean, you're not one of the bottom teams by any means. But the ones that lose every game, you know, those coaches are not going to stick around for very long.
Yeah.
So that's the problem when you do this. If you're not up to, you have to find a group of coaches that are competitive together. So it's not going to work if you have a mixed range of skills or, you know, abilities, because the ones that are going to lose every game in the conference, that's not going to be very fun for them. And, you know, they're paying money to do this. No one would really enjoy that kind of masochism. So it's hard to keep something like that going for a long time. And I think we just had to bring in a couple new coaches this season or last season, because the ones that are on the bottom are going to get sick of it. So it's hard to keep that going for a long time. There's usually a lot of enthusiasm at the beginning. Everyone,
we're not going to mention any names, are we?
No. Everyone thinks
the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Should I cut out now or?
No.
No, it doesn't matter. It happens. I mean, like I said, I've done this a bunch of times. I mean, we just came from D1 AA where we were doing this there, where we had a full human conference in the Big Sky. And you know, it's, and again, I've done it a few other times too. So I've seen what it is. But if you can get a group of coaches with kind of like skill sets, and it doesn't even have to be completely full. I mean, completely full is great, but even just mostly full, or, you know, more full than any other conferences is a bonus. Mm-hmm. And so, but I think the most important thing is that you want to get those skill sets kind of similar so that everyone feels that they can compete. And even if they're losing, they're close. They're not getting blown out, you know, by 60 points.
Now, let me ask Warren this, and for no particular reason, just I'm kind of rotating around. You know, it's one thing to root for a team that's in the playoffs, you know, even if you're still in the playoffs. I mean, you want your conference mates to win. Now, let's say that you're out of the playoffs and your conference mate is making a deep run. You can plead the fifth if you want to. Do you share resources as far as any hints or tidbits or scouting on your conference mate's opponent in the playoff in order to help him as much as possible to defeat that guy, keep on going, and bring more money to the conference?
Well, I won't take the fifth, but I do hang out with a lot of attorneys. So let me phrase it this way. No, but kidding aside, I probably wouldn't, and only because I don't think I have that kind of expertise, and I don't want to put something in someone's head that might just give them some doubt and make a change that ultimately may cost them something.
Right.
If I were like a top tier coach or something like that, I would definitely share if I had any information. But where I am now, I really don't think I'd be much help.
And, I wouldn't have even thought of that other than a time that I can reflect back on recently, as a matter of fact, where a coach who was not even in my conference was ousted in the playoffs early on by I think he was the eventual national champ. And had he not lost that game in like the second round, I believe it was, I think he would have probably made a deep run. But nonetheless, the coach contacted me via site mail and said, hey, I see what you do with your DBs. And if you continue to do that, the guy you're playing next is going to eat your clock. I know it shows that he runs historically, but when he comes up against a team with the DBs in the formation set and do what yours do, he'll go to pass and he'll eat your clock. And he gave me a tip or two, and I made the recommended changes, and still got my ass kicked. But I guarantee it wasn't as bad as it would have been, because lo and behold, that coach did in fact try to pass all day and all night against me. So that made me think. I wonder how many times I've played a team where that coach has had some secondary assistance, if you will, kind of the O-line, the offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator mindset, when his buddy's out of the playoff or maybe not even in that world. So I was just wondering if maybe some of the other three have experienced that. Crickets, brother. Nothing.
It's a double-edged.
There are better coaches in this conference than me, and I have never done that. I've never asked a coach who I definitely think is better than me how to beat X team or what to do. I've never done that.
Now, do you?
And I think too, it's also a little bit of a double-edged sword too. So Jason getting beat in the first round sucks for our playoff money, but it's also a couple of games less development for his team when I'm playing him in conference. So that's not the worst thing. Now, if somebody inquires, I'm not going to be a jerk and say, not help them, but I don't know if any of us would offer advice. I know I've asked these guys for advice over the years, and they are willing to share, and I'd definitely be willing to do the same. I think when you ask for advice, one of the things that I would suggest is don't ask such an open-ended question that it's really hard to elaborate. I've had coaches ask me, some questions about recruiting or questions about game planning, and it's so open-ended that it would take me, a week to write out what I think about it. I think, just having an understanding, the people I could probably help the most are people that are, near my level and give some insight into the game. Sometimes like a beginning coach, it's challenging, and you got to think, all right, well, what information can I give them that will help them advance and move forward, but not overwhelm them that they're going to make their situation worse.
Exactly. Or you get somebody like me who got site mail from two different coaches, both of them asking relatively the same question about linebackers. And one was running a 4-4 and one was running a 4-3. And I gave the 4-4 guy my advice on the 4-3 and vice versa. And one of them took it, and the other asked back and said, "Did you even look at my team?" So, there are those occasions where, even the best intentions tend to screw people over. But kind of like what Matt was saying, there's that fine line of opening up that water hose to a new guy versus, letting him take sips. And I'm always afraid that I don't give enough to some of the new guys that ask. And, when I find myself writing these quote unquote manifestos, I'm like, man, he's not going to understand what I'm trying to say, or, this is going to go over his head. And not that it's really going to help him, but it's just some insight into the game and of itself. So definitely understand that position, Matt. There's only so much that you can give somebody before, what is it that they used to say on here, that diminished returns start happening, and they start getting confused and they're worse off than before they ask you. So yeah, being specific, I think, is a good way to approach some of these other coaches on site mail for those that need answers or those that are looking for some answers. What are the opportunities for you guys in the future? Now, this is a non-Power 5 conference. Let's say that there's a Power 5 conference out there. Let's look at like the Pac-12. They've got the one elite in USC, but they've also got some good quality, fertile recruiting areas out there in California and Arizona, where you've got some teams that are relatively close, very similar to what the Big East has. Is there talk, or would there be a desire to possibly fall into an opportunity to take this group and over a period of 2 or 3 seasons, possibly move it out to a Power 5 conference? Or are you guys content with what you have here?
I don't think that would work. I mean, I think the whole what makes this successful is that, as far as all the conferences, I believe, the teams here are pretty equitable in terms of recruiting. So there are a few that kind of outliers that can kind of come or go, Colorado State and South Florida. But otherwise, you've got a pack of teams in the Northeast that are not elite and a pack of teams in the Midwest. I'd probably argue that the Northeast is a little stronger recruiting than the Midwest area. But, you look at the Pac-12 and you'd have Washington teams and Oregon teams, and, they would, if they were all populated, like, they would never compete with USC. I mean, they would never beat USC ever. So it's hard.
Going out to the, a conference that may have that stalwart coach at the single elite, getting him to take a hike so that you can accommodate every one of your conference mates would probably take some financial exchanges in real life.
and then there would be one winner from our group who gets that elite, right?
Yeah. I got you. Good point. Good look into that.
Yeah, and I think the advantage too with the BCS, or with it's a non-Power 5 conference, but how the game's structured, it's a BCS conference. So from a recruiting prestige standpoint, any non-elite we're on even footing with. And then I think the thought process with the Big East was, if we can get enough playoff teams, we can level that ground with some of the elites too. Now, one of our challenges has been the Big Ten's still been really successful. They haven't had a dip. Like, those guys are doing a pretty good job there, and their non-elite coaches are making the playoffs still. And, that's one of my and Ty's probably biggest challenges is there's some good coaches in the Big Ten too that we got to deal with.
Michigan State, he does pretty well. Is Wisconsin?
Wisconsin, I finally evicted.
We evicted. well, you chopped off his legs. I just pushed him over.
He is a good dude, though. He played me in
Notre Dame is Kenzie's so tough. Streifman at Minnesota.
Yeah.
And he's a good
hard.
coach. He really knows what he's doing. So it really is. I mean, it's tough. You talked about moving conferences. Could you imagine if we moved to the ACC and had Wake Forest, North Carolina State, North Carolina, and Duke all recruiting against each other?
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Yeah, that would be a bloodbath. That's not unlike.
It's not a lot. It's not a fertile ground.
Yeah, and it's not unlike, like I mentioned earlier, the LSC conference in Division II, where you put that 360 arc over the middle of the state, and you've got 7 teams right there that are just gonna, if they were all humans, that would be. Matter of fact, I think I'll see if I can't make that happen. Get all human LSC conference just for the bloodbath alone.
Well, with D2, if you're, elite enough, you can get undecideds.
Yeah.
And you don't have to really worry about that. And, but, at like hypothetically the ACC with that move, just those four, besides a few linebackers here and there, everything is you got to battle Sims for recruits.
Yep.
And that just would be, it's bad enough for the Big East when you've got Temple and Rutgers and Boston College, and Penn State, if someone's at Army, that's bad enough, but you just have so many numbers there. Cause I was at UConn for a while in Rockney. You still can come up with something good, but with Matt and I, where we are around Chicago, you would think we'd have more to pull from, but we don't.
You mentioned a good point too about being able to see the undecideds, like at a Division II, where you've got an opportunity to really move your team to the cream of the crop level by getting those 16, 17, 18 win seasons year after year after year, some NCs in there maybe. At this particular group, you're D1A, you can see all the recruits. So when it comes to recruiting, are you guys able to really contend with some of the upper level guys that are out there within your 360, given you have that added recruiting money? Or is it just inherently evident that they are an elite, and even though you want to level that recruiting playing field, there are times when you just pack your bags and move on to somebody else?
You got to pick and choose your spots. You probably could do it for one recruit, maybe.
Hey, everybody.
For me at DePaul, maybe I can pull it on one recruit, but you can't battle, any of us, even guys, like at Marquette and who have more wins, who have more prestige, even that they can't battle, even with the extra money. You can't battle Notre Dame and Michigan consistently, especially, if you're on the wrong end of the 180, 360,
yeah,
or even if you're both in the 180 or you're both in the 360, it's still tough. You really have to pick and choose your battles. And with that,
Sean, you're just to kind of quick fill you in, we've already talked about some of the advantages of being in an all-human conference, along with some of the disadvantages. Recruiting,
cheat codes.
Yeah, cheat codes. As well as some of the recruiting dilemmas that occur, with a conference that has so many clusters of schools relatively close to one another. We've also discussed quickly about the roster makeup, where most of the teams in conference have a relatively balanced number year to year to year. But it was mentioned that you are probably one of the coaches that have a class or two that has a couple of high numbers. So I just want to ask you, was that intentional, or is that something that you're just trying to kind of massage until you get the roster number the way you want it?
Yeah, no, not intentional. I of course, my dog starts barking as soon as I start talking here. But no, not intentional. The team came like that, and I just didn't feel like changing it. So I left it, and it's worked out for the most part. I have, two good seasons and 2 down seasons where I got like 6 or 7 seniors. But with like the advantages with the recruiting money, I think especially at 1A, you have an advantage when you have those smaller number of scholarships and you get that massive amount of recruiting money. With 6 scholarships, I can afford to take 3 sims if I want to, right? Not that you want to, but or I can get cheaper end guys and just fill in the key positions and make sure I can go to battle for pretty much anybody I want with that money, right? So yeah, I almost like recruiting wise, I almost like the smaller classes better, especially at 1A. But obviously once you're out in the playing field, having all the seniors definitely helps. So I think I have 16 seniors in one class and 14 or 15 in the other. So it's not too crazy, but it's a little bit lopsided. I do have one class that's only 7 or something like that. So
now, when it comes to that recruiting, even in your smaller classes like that, it's understandable. You fill it if you do. You've got a nice little nest egg to carry over, so to speak. From a conference standpoint, are there a lot of Sims being taken by the conference as a whole each recruiting season?
I don't think so. In the Big Ten there is, because we've been doing some damage over there. But no.
Yeah, there's one team in particular.
I think somebody in the Big Ten took 11
6.
Sims. It was 6. Okay. But the Big Ten chat was giving them hell over it, so it was kind of funny. I think somebody wrote that's an interesting strategy you got taking all their Sims. We'll have to see how it plays out.
Man, there's no love on that guy. Wow.
So, but no, I for the most part I think we've done pretty good as a whole.
Wait a minute.
Although you are limited from, I know you look at the when you refresh the recruits and look at them, there's only you can maybe get a handful of the ones you want. He has
12 Sims on his team.
Well, he should move. He should move west instead of trying to move east. That's the advice I can give him.
Yeah,
there's a recruiting fence just on the outskirts of that Pennsylvania, Ohio border, or a little bit further west, I should say, maybe even Indiana area, where the fence has got some fangs from the beast on it. You don't want to cross that fence.
Well, Ohio State's got nowhere to go. Ohio State has nowhere to go. They come east, and they're every cycle they're guaranteed to be in a battle with me, be in a battle with Jason. They go west. They got Louisville. They got Cincinnati.
Oh yeah.
It's like there's no relent, and we all have tons of money, right? So it's not. It's tough. I'd rather at this point pick my battles in that direction than go east from West Virginia. I'd rather.
I'm sorry, keep going.
No, go ahead. I'm done.
I don't know who coaches Penn State, but I'm sure the having Temple and UConn out there with our money, kind of puts a crimp in his in his style.
And Pitt too, yeah.
And Pitt, right? And, right. So it's not like the Penn State and other worlds where they just kind of run over you.
Yeah, with this setup, the elites really have to pick their battles. They can't just go and take everybody they want like they normally can.
Yeah, that's and when I think the beauty of it all is that it's not something that particular conference or another conference doesn't know is happening. I mean, it is above table. You're getting the hell beat out of you when it comes to recruiting. There's no doubt about it. You're not going to be able to run over teams in the Big East. So, it's almost to the point where it's any recruiting battle that is initiated outside of the Big East is almost laughable. I mean, that's kind of the way that I see this. Now, I, as a coach, recruiting at, like Billy mentioned earlier, like a Wake Forest or somewhere in North Carolina, there's no way I would venture into Big East territory and try to get a recruit, because I know that there's so much money there, and not just with one or two teams. Everybody has a ton of recruiting money. So if you're a wise dog, you go sit on somebody else's porch and see what they got to offer you coming into your territory, which just adds to the fact that you guys are going to keep getting better. Where will the Big East eventually end up? How good can you guys get?
Well, hopefully somebody can win a national championship. We'll see.
I think that's going to happen sooner than later.
And do you think that's going to open up the floodgate of repeat national championships for either that coach or the Big East, where somebody else steps in within the next year or two and pulls off the trophy?
I don't think.
Let's get one first. Let's get one first.
Oh, yeah, you got to get one before you add all of them.
All right.
Hey, fellas.
Nobody asked you anything. Welcome, CFB. Now, as I did with Warren, there's this is your first time on the show, if I'm not mistaken. So go ahead and introduce yourself as far as your name, where you're from, kind of what you do. And this is normally an hour show, gents, but we've got about 5 minutes left, and I'm just going to run it over, and we're going to enjoy a conversation and leave if you have to, and stay. But if it runs another 30 minutes, I'm fine with that. So go ahead and give us a little background.
My name's Justin. I'm 41. I've got 3 kids. Live in Alabama, unfortunately, and I do sports betting. I'm in the sports betting industry.
Oh, okay, cool.
So,
now, how long have you been in Gridiron Dynasty?
oh God, 15 years.
Yeah, I was going to say you've been around about as long as I have, and I joined in 05.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah, okay. All right. Now, as far as being, and we've already discussed this with some of the others, your conference mate, but as far as being in this conference, is it something that you enjoy, having the continual game planning and recruiting dilemmas, having to go up against all these other, top quality coaches?
I love it. I mean, it's great. I get my ass handed to me every day, but come recruiting time, I mean, there's no other teams out there. Like Penn State usually takes every recruit in every world that they want, and I mean, the Beast, we run our recruiting areas.
Man, with all that money, as Jason mentioned early on, several tens of $1,000s above that $100,000 mark. So that's just incredible when you look at that's bonus money on top of your recruiting.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I think actually the Big East has walked away with the top rated quarterback in each of like the last 3 or 4 seasons.
Gosh. Now, you mentioned the quarterback. Is the league, I mean, are the teams predominantly a passing setup, or do you have more running, or is there, 50-50?
The balanced teams are dominating right now, I think.
Is it the ones that can run and pass?
You got to be able to run and pass. If you're a one-trick pony, it's going to be hard.
So Sean's pretty much dominating then, him and Jason?
Pretty much.
And I would think the better teams probably run a little more than they pass.
Huh.
Is that accurate?
Well, the reason I ask that is because geographically, there are parts of the U.S. where a particular position, the quality of that particular position or the numbers is a little better than you'll find elsewhere. There's certain regions where offensive linemen are, not necessarily plentiful, but really good. And other areas where there's a ton of quarterbacks, and other ones you got a ton of DBs. And I was just wondering if the availability of recruits in that Big East world, does that dictate the offenses, because there are a ton of running backs that you guys can pick from, or there are a ton of receivers and not a lot of running backs?
I think it helps that we all run different offenses. I don't know if the recruit distribution is crazy, but I think somebody was running shotgun, right? Was that you, Justin?
It was.
And I think Jeff was running it too for a little while.
Jeff started it, I think 3 seasons ago, and he completely just passed on me all up and down the field. Like, Jeff owns me. And I mean, I think Temple's a lot better of a team, but he's a lot better of a game planner, definitely, because he beat me again today, and I went second half just straight shotgun trying to get something going and couldn't get anything going at all.
Well, you're not alone when it comes to playing against Jason.
So Temple's little shotgun.
I'm actually doing
Temple's everything, man.
Yeah,
that's right.
What is going on there?
Yeah, I actually started doing everything. So I'm like, well, okay, maybe if I can get my offense going, then, it's going to be harder for somebody to game plan. But then when I get on there and I try to game plan for defense, it's like first half I do so good. And then second half, it's like, like Rice. I mean, he just a couple of days ago, I was just like, man, I can't believe 2 overtimes, missed field goal, he kicked the field goal, wins. I'm just like,
Are there a lot of close games in your conference? I mean, overall, would somebody from the outside looking in, without seeing that they're human teams and just looking at some of the games, go, "Holy crap, this is a tight conference"?
Well, I do want to mention something. I see Rice is doing much better this year than last year. I think as he fired his special teams coordinator.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
It was a running joke in the thing. Like, I think every game he had someone block the punt.
Yeah, I had given up 6 block punts during the regular season. It was
he fired his special teams coach, and now he's rolling.
I think yes, there are quite a few close games, and I think you'd expect that with having the good coaches and the good teams that we do have.
Warren, what do you think is an advantage for a relatively new guy coming into a conference where you got to face some of these quality coaches and deal with them every day?
I think the best thing is you get to learn from it. I mean, whether you win or lose, and usually it's lose, you get to see, what they're doing, and you can maybe try to mimic a little of that, see what their team is made up of. Like with Rutgers, I think this is my second season now, and I never usually run a Notre Dame, but I'm running a Notre Dame because they had a lot of tight ends. And they're pretty decent. So I'm kind of trying to incorporate that into everything. But I think the biggest thing, besides the money, which we've talked about, and the little bit of an advantage for recruiting, is really just to see what they're doing and to learn from it.
Now, they talked about Matt firing his special teams coach. If you could fire a particular coach on any other team, whether it's special teams, offense, or defensive coordinator, on any other team in your conference, Warren, what position coach or team coach would that be, and on what team?
Okay, Scott, your offensive coordinator's got to get out of here. Just too potent. You can name all of them.
Right. Justin, what do you think is the biggest learning curve in a conference like this? Is it recruiting, game planning? Is it roster makeup?
Definitely game planning. Like recruiting, like I said, with the budget that we have, recruiting is a lot easier than what I thought it would be, especially against some of the top tier elite teams around us and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But game planning, I used to never game plan like at all. I mean, there was years that I could go and win national championships and never even touch a game plan, just recruit and set my depth charts, and then that was it. Let it ride for the rest of the season. Now it's like every day it's like, my God, I got to get on here. And I just found out about Ed Zimi's gridiron thing that he's got.
The analyst tool.
The analyst, the analyst. So I just found out about it last week, and I was like, well, let me get on here and look, So I started doing some game planning, and it's not working too well, especially in this conference.
Now, have you actually had an opportunity to maybe learn something in this conference and turn around and take that nugget of wisdom and apply it to one of your other teams elsewhere and see the expected results, or is it not working like that?
It's really, I'm just like with my offense right now, doing experimenting with, all the offensive strategies and stuff like that, everything. And I'm trying to do a mostly passing game, which I think I do need to break it down to mostly a balanced or more of a run. But I'm just kind of experimenting because my junior and senior class, they were not very good recruiting classes, but my sophomore and freshman was great. And if I can recruit like that for the next 2 seasons, I think that team possibly has a chance at a national championship.
Starting to sound like Alec.
if some of these
There it is.
if some of these guys right here, if some of these guys right here doesn't,
Over an hour.
If they doesn't, get in the way, which I'm sure half of them probably will, but I really like my sophomore and freshman classes, but I'm not too big on my senior and juniors.
Now, do you prefer that you're talking about getting everything set up? Do you prefer a balanced offense, defense, roster makeup number wise, or do you want to take an opportunity to have a high number recruiting class and get some quality guys and have a ton of money to spend on a few guys, kind of like what Sean was talking about earlier?
All right, I didn't hear that. What was that again?
I said, do you like to drink whiskey the way Sean does? No. Do you like to have your roster makeup? You're talking about tweaking your offense and working some things and kind of massaging it and trying to figure out what works. Have you come to a conclusion as to what works best for you, given the roster makeup of the numbers in each class? Or, do you try to balance that? Or is it something where you prefer to have a large class or two and then have some smaller ones because of the recruiting money in this format?
I kind of like to have about 12 or 13, since there's 50 players.
Mm-hmm.
I like to have like 12 or 13 each class. I think this upcoming class, I'm only going to have 7. So we're all going to have to make a lot of recruiting money for me to knock out Penn State on some recruits, because I've already got, I think, 7 or 8 I think I'm going to have. And I've already got my 8 guys set at number 1 priority that I want. So, and that's what I usually do. I usually set my guys at the priority during the season. Mm-hmm. And then when the season recruiting starts, I hit them hard first cycle and try to turn them green. And then I just sit back and wait, if anybody tries to battle, or, and then I've got that extra money. Like every season I've rolled over at least probably $80,000 to $90,000, which I get 25% of that.
Yeah.
I think I could probably branch out and go past my 180 and get better recruits, but I just usually stay within the 180.
Good recruiting strategy. I know some of the other guys probably use that money, kind of like you alluded to venture out a little bit further. Does anybody in the Big East habitually recruit Hawaii?
Not when there's a coach in Hawaii.
Oh, okay, I didn't know if BJ was out there in this particular world or not. I know he has a passion for Hawaii, and
I've got a great linebacker from Alaska right now on my team.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was going to ask next in that ball frame or ballpark is, I know we've talked about the Big East recruiting, but have you guys discovered a particular area of the country where, for the most part, any of you have continued success or repeat success?
I got to kind of recruit all over. I don't know about these guys, but there's not enough players in our 360 that.
Yeah.
If I want to battle and I really want to get after it, I could, but I think that's going to make me a worse team. Like my best DB right now is from California, and he's really good. I mean, sometimes you're just going to have to go out and venture out. I think it's different for each school, though. I've had Temple, I have Temple in one world, I have UConn in another world. Yeah, you can recruit 60 miles from Philadelphia and Temple, and you can dominate. And so I think it just is situation dependent. I know Jason ventures out a bit. Sean ventures out quite a bit. He'll have like 40 guys, yellow or green, after the first cycle every cycle. So, yeah.
There's a philosophy that was presented to me, and one of the guys asked, and going back to D2 again, where I may have a class of 15 players, but yet I've got 40 that are either green or yellow to me after the first cycle. And the coach asked me, he said, how many of those do you routinely sign? And I said, I guarantee you it's less than the number of open scholarships I have, because the majority of them aren't caliber recruits. They're subpar talented recruits. And his next question to me was one I'd not thought of in all these years, and that's, well, if you're having to recruit and sign guys that aren't green for you that first cycle, doesn't it make it tougher for you to have all those guys green and have a coach who would otherwise recruit some of those if they weren't green, who is now recruiting recruits that you're going to end up having to battle for or go after because you've got all these green that you're not going to sign? So if you kind of follow that train of thought, it kind of made me go, I never thought about that. Essentially, he's saying, if you put your name tag on these guys, there's a coach that's going to go find the next best undecided, and he's going to be on him a lot sooner than you are, and you're going to end up having to battle him now for that recruit because the ones that like you, he didn't have an option to recruit, so he went and found the other guy. Do you guys see some of that as being a viable cause of concern when you get so many recruits liking your school at the initial onset?
No.
We usually don't have a lot of people like the school on the front.
I also think, like, with the coaches that are experienced in our league, if you got a player green and you're able to flip them, they didn't want them because they will make you fight for it. Like that's, Billy and I being 30 miles apart, like if I see a player green, I'm not coming in on Billy because I know he's going to fight me tooth and nail. We've played in other worlds against each other, and it's not worth it. But if I see somebody in trouble, a coach that's in trouble with their class and they got multiple battles going on, then that's an invitation for me to come
Big
in.
Ten school.
Yeah, there's some.
Damn. Man,
you got to learn somehow.
Yeah.
Do you guys?
I only got one person from him. So
do you guys schedule?
I think, some of these guys have been the beneficiary of that more so than me.
Do you guys send out schedule invites to the Big Ten? Non-conference type schedule invites to the Big Ten?
I've played Michigan State and I've played Marquette every year, or Wisconsin every year, just because I was at Marquette and I wanted to make that a rivalry. So I know conference wide we scheduled fairly tough. Sometimes we're a little lazy, but I think for the most part, most of these guys have a tough schedule. I know Sean and CFB, Justin have really tough schedules every year.
Do you guys try to your
I think we have
so that you can kind of see what the other teams within your conference are doing as
I
far as
schedule the Pac-10 team every year.
Yeah, okay. I did because I know in some of the worlds I was in, there was like 4 or 5 coaches, and we would particularly schedule, even if it was a sim, similar teams or the same teams in another conference as a gauge to kind of where we were competitive wise within the conference before we played one another.
I think it's with the coaches we have, it's tight enough as it is to basically just assume that it's somewhat out of your control, right? Like I don't need to know how good Jason's team is just because I know when I play them, it's going to come down to 1 3rd down miss, and whoever gets it is going to win, and whoever and so I don't really worry too much about that. I from my perspective, scheduling the conference is tough enough. So I'm trying to schedule teams that I'm pretty confident I can beat. I don't want to. Right. I'm gonna collect my losses in conference. I don't need to collect them out of conference. Yeah. And even with that, that's enough to strength of schedule. That's enough to boost you up.
Yeah, that was my thought kind of going in is how are these guys scheduling their non-conference because of the tough competition they have within the regular conference games. Do they want to bloody their nose elsewhere or keep that blood within the conference? As a new guy coming in, do you kind of, I want to say not take it easy on him, but do you kind of offer him an opportunity to at least get maybe the first half some confidence built up in your games, or do you just go full bore anytime you play the new guys?
Sink or swim.
Yeah.
My goal is to be done by halftime.
Oh,
So,
And
Or
he
by the first
usually
quarter.
is.
By the first quarter. By the first quarter.
Yeah.
now, show of hands. This is the port question. Punter or kicker? How many of you carry just a punter? How many of you carry just a kicker? Well, that means the rest of you carry one of each. See how good I am? That's that deduction thing there. Yeah.
well,
I'm
again,
one of
the
guys that
margins,
carries one.
the margins in the conference are so close that those kickoffs, just the yardage on the kickoffs is important.
Those
Yeah,
missed field goals, they'll really cost you a game.
yeah, no way could you carry just one. No way.
And that was going to be my follow-up. Had anyone said, yeah, I only carry a kicker or I only carry a punter, is how much of an advantage or disadvantage have you discovered by doing that? And as Sean said, it's critical with the field position game or missing that field goal, in a tight ball game. So carrying both is wise in this particular setup.
It is in the beast.
Yeah.
I mean, you really got to have both in the beast. I mean, other conferences, other worlds, maybe not, because it's not as jam-packed as Wilkinson is.
Mm-hmm.
But in the beast and in Wilkinson, you definitely need both of them to make a run.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you, personally, if I see a team that has just one punter or kicker, I mean, that's, I don't know, 10 points more, maybe more. I mean, it's a huge disadvantage, in my opinion, to only have one.
I agree. For such a marginal advantage to get one extra player, it's not worth it. I mean,
which is only gonna
advantage.
be useful maybe 1 year, one season or two seasons.
Exactly.
Right? Not even the first couple seasons.
Yeah, exactly. And that in of itself is one of the reasons I've started changing my philosophy on my teams and carrying two, but I've always been a one guy type mindset. And then kind of like what Jason said, you start looking at some of the games and you're like, man, I lost a game by 3 points deep in the playoffs. And it was because my punter missed a 32-yard field goal.
And the kick returner returned the ball to midfield like 4 times.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. Exactly. And I've forever been a proponent of just carrying one, especially at lower levels. But my mind has been defogged, and the understanding has increased my ability to recognize that that's not necessarily the best thing to do. And specifically with what you guys have mentioned, you're saving one roster spot for an opportunity for that particular player or that particular depth on that position to play for maybe 1 year.
I've even changed my philosophy. Like, I used to just think any kicker or punter was good, and I didn't really care. I'd dip down the 1AA and sign an undecided. I really didn't care as long as I had one, but our league, the margins are so small. Like, I actually flip sims to get kickers and punters, which I've never done in this game.
So does this conference make you do things that, kind of like with me, changing my mindset with the whole pork situation? Have you discovered that being in this conference kind of makes you take a step back from some of the philosophies or structure that you've got with your particular team just because of the conference?
I've deleted my old game plans and started over fresh just because of this damn conference. I mean, I'm trying to find anything that can work against these guys. I mean, like, I think it was last season, I think I was like 7-6, something like that, and still made the playoffs because the number one schedule and playing in the beast. What? I mean, that's like you talk about scheduling hard out of conference. I mean, I'll schedule Penn State, a Michigan, a Notre Dame, of Texas, all them out of conference. But, I mean, really, truthfully, you've got to play them guys somewhere down the road if you want to win a national championship.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
that's a good point.
That's how I look at it.
Yep. Well, before we close this thing up, is there any chance of the Big East having a meeting somewhere in real life and downing a couple beers?
I say we go to Ohio State and plant the flag in midfield. You can meet up there.
Well, let me know when you do. I'll go with you. There are two teams that I dislike, and it's Nebraska and Ohio State. And I couldn't tell you exactly why. I just know that ever since I've been knee high to a grasshopper, it's been those two schools for whatever reason. No matter who the coach are, who the players are. I got family in Ohio. I've had friends from Nebraska. I just can't stand those two. And I will say that Nebraska has never beaten Arkansas in football.
They give you a map. They show you
I think they played one time and Arkansas won.
Well, I know my Notre Dame Fighting Irish has got to play Ohio State in the first game, and they're like a 15.5-point underdog already.
Jeez.
So, yeah.
That's never good.
Yeah. I live in Alabama, and people's like, so who do you root for, Alabama or Auburn? And I'm like, neither one, and they're like, what are you talking about? I say, I go for Notre Dame. How in the hell do you live in Alabama and root for Notre Dame? Yep. I said, because I don't want to listen to this roll tide bullshit all the time and all these bunch of damn rednecks. So
the first time I ever got a taste of that Alabama-Auburn situation, I may have told this on the previous show, was my dad was at McClellan being an Army brat. He was stationed at McClellan, and I went to school in Waverly, which is right outside of Anniston. And one of my classmates came to school one day, and he was pretty beat up. And I asked, I said, man, what happened? He said, oh, we got in a fight at the house. And what the hell are you talking about? A fight at the house? You got an abusive dad? He said, no, it was my cousins. And we're 3rd and 4th grade here. And it was, they wore their freaking Auburn shirts to the Alabama family's house, for dinner or whatever. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, your family. Not when it's Iron Bowl.
It is crazy, I'm telling you.
Yep.
And I live right down the road from McClellan. Fort McClellan. So where did you say you went to school?
Waverly Elementary School, right outside of Anniston. And it was third grade that I went there. And it was in 74, maybe 73, somewhere in that. So we're talking decades ago.
Yeah.
Hell, that town may not even be there. But that's where I experienced my first tornado and lived through it by crawling in a ditch drain pipe. And saw this tornado go right over my head, but the reality was it was about 5 miles away.
Yeah.
You see all that debris, and you're like, man, it's got to be right here. And then you see the news, and it's like, no, I was a lot closer than that. I was getting hit with stuff.
At least where I am, we get the warnings for the hurricanes.
Yeah, that's true. You get a little notice.
We get some notice, and hopefully for the football league, I don't know if I told you this, because that was right around when Ida hit, and I evacuated Panama City, and with my girlfriend and her 2 daughters, and we evacuated, and just it was a cluster. I forgot about the draft, so it auto drafted for me. And that's why I ended up with 2 Falcons players, because I would have had 0.
Well,
and one of them was Calvin Ridley, for Christ's sake.
Trust me when I say that I felt some of that in the past, where one thing, internet connection, whatever, and I auto drafted somebody. And up until that point, I've never had a Nebraska or Ohio State player on my NFL football team. And I got auto drafted. And, it was a situation where I'm like, all right, well, I'll just ride it out. It wasn't intentional, and ended up winning me the championship. So, so now when it comes to the NFL and fantasy football, I don't cringe as much as I used to when I get one of their players, because now it's all about me.
I still won't have a Falcon. I'll draft a Cowboy before I draft a Falcon.
Oh,
no, I'm not a Cowboy.
And that's saying something.
Cowboys.
No, I won't have a Cowboy. Well, guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Before we go around the horn, starting with Matt, any advice to a coach who is wanting to start up a league similar to this or a conference similar to this?
Yeah, I think you got to just start the network with some people. We had a pretty good group. Wilk has a nice feature. They have the Slack channel for Wilkinson, and being able to coordinate some of it with these guys. I know Sean was in the Big Sky, and Ty was, and Jason was part of that original Big Sky, and we came up to seek some competition there from D2, and then moved it on up to the Big East. And if you ask people, you can find who the competitors are. It's pretty obvious, and then just ask them. They'll hop in for sure. I do not want to play in another one. Jason asked that before. Mm-hmm. Like, it's too much. Our league's fine, and it's fun to compete in, but it's a lot of damn work. So one's enough for me.
Jason, what about you? What's the one thing that you would give a new coach in a league that's established like this? What one bit of advice could you give them to set them off on the right foot?
Don't take it personally. Have fun.
Yeah. Okay.
Learn from the people who've been doing this for a long time, and be open-minded. Probably don't practice every formation, Justin. But you can if you want. Shotgun, I don't know, but okay, you could try it if you want. You can learn a lot from the people who are successful and see what they're doing and what they're not doing and who they recruit and how they recruit. There are no secrets. I mean, there's nothing. You can see what everybody's doing. I mean, maybe a little bit, but there's not a lot of secrets. You have to be inquisitive, and you have to be open-minded, and
Billy, if a new coach came into the league, what's the one thing he could do to really piss everybody off?
I think we know the answer to
that. Beat your chest on the league chat board. You've really done nothing. But I just to echo kind of what Jason said is, I'm relatively new at this. I've only been doing Gridiron Dynasty for a few years, and it's knowing, asking some of these coaches who are, send site mails, ask, and I've had some coaches over the years that have helped me when I was just a beginner and really didn't know what I was doing. Not that I really know what I'm doing now, but I definitely have, I definitely, I still ask for, little tidbits of advice from some of these guys. Just ask, and I've had some other coaches who have not been around as well will ask me some stuff, and kind of what college football fans said is it's, with the money we have or just how to recruit, because you're not really going to get a lot of game planning advice from some of these guys. And I really don't ask a lot of game planning advice, but asking recruiting advice and, like how to maybe not what you're looking for, like talent wise, but like if you want a guy, how to go about doing it. So recruiting advice, I think is that at least kind of gets you in the ball game, and then you look at the way other rosters are constructed, which is what I do, and I try and emulate that. So that would be my advice to any new coach or lesser coach or inexperienced coach.
Now, Warren, if you had an opportunity, if I could give you the ability to take over immediately tonight any other team in your conference and give you full reign, you're now the owner or you're now the coach, what team would it be?
Actually, I think I'd stick with mine.
Oh!
I mean, it would be too easy. I could take, Jason's team. I could take Sean's team. I could take I'll stick it out at Rutgers, see what I can do. I've this year I've kind of gone overboard. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm in 8 world, which is just totally ridiculous. Newly retired, so I'm trying to fill my time.
Yeah.
So just overdid it way too much. I'm going to take it a lot more seriously now. I've been in the league for a while, but never really into it. And now I'm just trying to get settled in. So watching what people are doing and everything. But I would stick with Rutgers. I think, Rutgers, hopefully with me, can get up there and be pretty competitive.
Sean, if I could give you an opportunity to have a 5-game winning streak against any other team in the conference, but you would have to go 500 against every other team in the conference, what team would you want to beat 5 times in a row in that situation?
It's a good one. There's probably a correct answer to this based on who's in my side of the conference, but I'll probably say Jason, just because I'm guaranteed to lose half of them. So I'll take the 5 and be happy with it.
It's kind of like Arkansas used to be. We can lose them all, but as long as we beat LSU, we're happy.
Hey now.
Or Husker too. Now that he's on, Husker kicks my ass. So in Yoast. So once you get rid of Alex players, you'll be doing the same thing in the Beast probably.
Now, Justin, if I could give you an opportunity to start over from scratch, what is the biggest mistake you would not repeat?
All my offensive formations. I think I might run. I really think that the Notre Dame box is doing really well right now, and I think I would run the Notre Dame box. But like I said, when I was playing Cincy, and he had that shotgun offense, and just throwing the ball down the field all on me, and I was just like, oh my God. I said, well, I'm going to try that. I'm fixing to try to experiment and see what I can do, see what offense. So, there's no telling what I'll come up with. Tomorrow's game plan might be first half all Notre Dame box. The second half might be all trips or, something like that, which that's the good thing about it is I keep you on your toes. But, right now my offense isn't that great to move the ball that good, and my defense is not good enough to stop.
Kind of sounds like me, where my offense is not good enough to move the ball ever. My defense never even gets off the bus.
Yeah.
That's just been my problem. Husker, I'm going to go to you with a tough question, and that is, why in the hell haven't you won a national championship with all those studs that Alex left you?
Yeah, every single one of them, buddy. Every single one of them.
If you look on guest reports, they're all number 1, even the guys in the same position.
I need more DBs.
Man, welcome to the show. I know you popped in a little bit late, and we're actually in the wrap-up phase, but as I do with all first-timers, if you will, take a moment and give us a little bit of insight as to who you are, where you're from, and kind of what got you started into GD.
Well, so this is not my first. I think most of you guys know that my other account is J9. So I've been on there before, and so that's my other account. I don't use it that much anymore. So Magic, we've played against each other many times. I've been here a couple of times.
You've been on the audio version of the show early on.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you were winning national championships by naming quarterbacks another player's kid's name.
Oh yeah. I had a buddy of mine. I kept naming my quarterbacks as kids, and I kept beating him. So it's kind of a running joke we had. So it was a good time. Yeah.
Yeah, and Ray, I don't know, he's just kind of dwindled off the face. I don't know. I haven't heard from him in a while, and haven't seen him in very many leagues at all.
Yeah, he tried to come back a couple of times, but the job and twins and all this other stuff's kind of kept him away. So he's I talk to him every once in a while. So he's in Oklahoma now, working.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember we gave him a hell of a time one time. He called into the show live, and I say called in. He joined us live and sitting at a picnic table and a bunch of kids running around behind him. And the sun was setting, and we're like, dude, where are you? And do the police know?
Yeah, exactly.
He was spending time, with family and friends, and we were giving the guy a hard time. But love Ray. He's a tough nugget, boy. He'll make you earn your win if you beat him. That's for sure.
Yeah, he's real good. We've exchanged ideas and playbooks, and we've been good friends since probably 2010, 2011 or something doing this. So we started out at San Diego, and Cal Poly and Hayes is where I met him. So a lot of good friendships I've met on here, and we still talk to this day, a bunch of guys. So I enjoy playing every one of you guys. That's why I joined. I hated the team I got stuck with, but it was the only way I could get in. I'm working on getting rid of the dime. It's not really my go-to. I'm more of a nickel guy. Apparently, I continue to run the same amount of DBs for nickel, and I should not do that, I guess. I'm trying to get Alex to text me or call me, but I just can't get him to respond to teach me how to do the dime better. But
yeah, just one portion of that game plan or that depth chart, that one little tiny nugget, man, you'd have it made,
I'm telling you, I will say this. There are some good pieces in there. I really messed up this last go around. I wanted 3 players, and BYU and Colorado fought me tooth and nail on every single one of them. And Colorado ended up taking like 7 sims. We was in 7 battles. I did win them all, and I was trying to make a point by doing that, but it cost me 6 sims, which I plan on dwindling down the next 2 years. And it was kind of a plan to take 3 sims. But the defensive line, there's just nothing around me, and I had a different idea, and it didn't work out. So, I struggled a little bit this time. Normally, I'm a little bit better about finding the right talent, but this past season, I found decent talent in good positions, but it'll take me a couple of seasons to get that solid depth to help that team out. I'm switching to nickel. Just want everybody to know it's going to be a slow transition. And then those nine DBs I have now will be perfect for that.
Although they were promised that they would play in a dime.
Oh, I know, buddy. I know. I won't be able to switch to nickel until I get rid of all of them.
And for folks that don't know, if you want to read some funny stuff and
comedy,
any post at Alec T2000 or whatever, and I called you out. Sorry, brother, but don't know you personally. I haven't met you on the show, but man, where the hell do you come up with some of this stuff, bro?
Hey, let me tell you what. Most of the guys in the conference know this, but some outside of the conference probably doesn't know this. Whatever, and I'm sure you might not know it neither. But my other account is also Ginobili04.
Okay.
So I'm at UCLA in Wilkinson, and I'm at Temple in Wilkinson, and I can't get rid of Alec because now he's gone to Arizona State. And then last season, I think at UCLA, I had like the 15th guest recruiting class or something like that. And then he was just talking so much shit because he was in his first season and he had the number 16th guest class and all this other stuff. And I've been there for many seasons and I had to fit. I said, Alec, I don't even really look. I look at the guests just for like fun, just to see and everything. Exactly. I like it but recruiting time, I don't even look at those numbers. I mean, it really doesn't. I don't really look at those numbers, but I can't get rid of him. I mean, I've even tried blocking him, and I've even asked customers. Well, I've asked Jordan. I said, Jordan, how can I block this guy? And Jordan's like, you can't. You can just try to, block from his comments or, not look at his other people's comments from different conferences. I was like, well, hell, I'm at UCLA too. I can't get rid of him.
No, so I do have a question though. I love it. I'm just going to be honest with you. I may be the only guy in here, but I crack up every time I see that guy post something. Like I could give two shits if this guy puts a message in every 5 seconds, because I laugh every time.
Yep, exactly.
Well,
he's an absolute moron in my mind.
I challenge him.
It's funny.
I created a team in Leahy, and I said, all right, because he's in D2, and I said, we're going to move up together, and you and I are going to join a conference at the same time, and I think in Leahy, like a DePaul Marquette, because that's kind of equal ground, or like one of the Carolina teams. So we're going to go up together, and we're going to do that. So I know he's not going to follow through with it, but I'm still going to do it. So if he reaches into his bag and pulls out excuse number 37 as why he can't do it.
What are the chances that Alec and Bag Chucker are the same person?
I think
Alec is Snake P.
$2 Chuck, Bag Chucker.
Snake P.
I remember Snake P. Oh my God.
I think that's the older version of Snake P.
Yes. I love
Wow, that goes way back.
Yes.
That goes
back to the Geno Mail days, man.
Yep. Yes, sir.
Who on here got a Geno Mail back in the day? My brother and I got in such an argument with Geno. He ended up joining our conference. It was a long time ago.
Oh my God.
But he played in Dobie. Jason was in Dobie too. It was like 2009 or something. Long time ago. And then I didn't play for like a decade and came back, and Jason was still on. I was like, all right, where should I play? And it's been a good fit, and Wilk's been fun.
Man, well, guys, look, it has been an absolute pleasure to have y'all on. And I would like to do this at the end of the season, kind of get a postseason wrap up to find out which one of you got the NC this year, and see if it was a Final Four Big East playoff matchup that got the eventual winner his national championship. So let's try to make something like that happen. And I'll get in touch with Sean, if you don't mind, Sean, and we'll kind of chat back and forth as we have on Site Mail and make some of that happen. And the invitation, by the way, as always, it's open. You know that. Anytime that there's a show, and it's usually Thursday night, every other Thursday at 8 Central, just pop on. I mean, they're, very seldom. This is one of the few times that something has been scheduled in this type of format with this many people, other than like the first year anniversary episode that, oh my gosh, I don't even want to get. If you haven't seen it, go find the first year anniversary episode. It's 2 hours long, a lot of drinking. I think we heard Holdaway take a leak in the dark. I mean, it's a classic for old times. That's for sure.
We're talking about flavored vodka or flavored bourbon or something.
Yep, Kissed caramel vodka, and I think I drank a half a bottle during the show. So
that's a you problem.
That's a good problem.
That's a you problem.
Man, that stuff it's addictive. It's good stuff. But anyway, listen, I really enjoyed it. Definitely look forward to having you guys on again at another time. And as I said, anytime you want to come on and discuss something specifically, let me know. We'll make it happen. Otherwise, just pop on the show and let us know what you got in mind for your thoughts, concerns, complaints, any of that good stuff. So anybody that has anything pressing before we go? Nope.
Jason, I appreciate the butt kicking today. Thank you.
Keep running the dime defense. It's going to happen every time.
Great versus the wishbone, man.
What'd you read 64 times today?
How can you not win with all those top 10 guest classes?
Yeah,
I don't understand how you can't win with that roster.
I think there should be a show like this. I think there should be a show like this at halftime of every day. Just to hear the shit talking that goes on. Guys, again, thanks so much for joining me. And
enjoyed it to all of y'all guys.
Hey, thanks, Magic. Thanks for having us.
All right, thanks.
Have a good one.
Bye, guys.
See you, fellas.